right, welcome to the 3 by 45 minute protocol, where you are going to learn our exact approach in terms of how we approach your actual gym splits throughout the week and why 3 sessions is the precise dose. What most guys fall under the trap of is they get this impression that they need to be training the 5, 6 days a week, 90-minute sessions, these brutal bro splits that you might have heard of, arm day, chest day, back day, leg day, all these kinds of things. This whole idea and construct is one of the biggest lies that the fitness industry has sold you. Well, let's first of all talk about where this whole 5, 6 day a week training philosophy came from. It came from the competitive bodybuilding era back in the 1970s and 80s when fitness started to boom for the first time, back when Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ronnie Coleman, all those guys were very popular. So their entire job was to eat, train, and essentially prepare for a competition, stage prep. Not only were they genetic anomalies, but they're also chemically enhanced with large amounts of anabolic steroids. That same model and fitness program got copied into every single commercial gym program, every single fitness magazine, every YouTube channel, and then it was then sold to busy professionals, entrepreneurs, owners, busy executives who actually have other priorities in their lives like families, jobs, travel, other stressors. We wonder why we can't stick with these. I speak to you not from a coaching perspective as a fitness professional with 10 years of health science background. I speak to you from my own personal experience where I ended up in the emergency room trying to adopt to a bodybuilding lifestyle. And that was through my own ignorance. So I'm here to shed some light here. It all comes down to recovery. No matter how much volume you're putting in the gym, if you don't have the ability to recover, well, then you're just going to break down your body. So we have to understand that we as busy professionals, our recovery cycles are a little bit different. Our 40, 50, 60 plus hours of work, our family life, our travel, other stressors that we deal with on our day to day. So our bandwidth is different. So the training ultimately needs to fit around our life, not the other way around. We just want to be lean, healthy, and aesthetic and feel our best and live till 100 with the least amount of time and investment so we can prioritize other things in our life. What you need to understand is that when you are on a caloric deficit, that in of itself puts systemic stress on your body. You add that on top of your busy work week. If you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, I myself was working 50, 60 hours a week in corporate as an executive there, commuting back and forth to the office. You can imagine, maybe you can relate. And then you're expected to do 5-day splits a week for 90-minute sessions. The total stress load is already very elevated and our recovery demand is much higher. So this is just something that you need to understand as a reality. Okay. We need to be adaptive. More volume in a deficit, it doesn't actually accelerate our progress. It is going to actually be catabolic after a certain point because of 4 main things. Number one, our cortisol level climbs. Cortisol is our stress hormones. Putting additional amounts of intense volume whilst in a deficit, you're just going to be spiking your cortisol levels where it's going to cause more damage than it's going to do good. It's going to increase your hunger. So your body is asking for more calories so that it can keep up with the demands of the stress that you're putting on it. Number three, it's going to start to affect your other hormones, which is going to start to affect your actual sleep. A healthy hormone environment lets you sleep better. That's where your recovery and adaptation happens. And then last but not least, it's going to lead to number four. Your compliance is just going to drop. Add in 2 weeks of brutal sessions and it's too difficult to actually sustain, well, then you're just going to eventually stop it. And this is something that happens so often for almost 90% of guys who start these bodybuilding programs. Unless you are specifically living in the gym, training for a bodybuilding competition, this just is not realistic for your life and is going to do more damage than good. So this is what you need to understand in the lie that the fitness industry has sold you. So we need to adapt. We cannot be playing the same game as a competitive bodybuilder. This is where we introduce the 3x45 protocol. It's 3 sessions, 45 minutes tops. We're focusing on compound lifts, minimalistic fitness. So why are we doing only 3 sessions of 45 minutes? Why not 4? Why not 5? Number one, The stimulus. According to scientific studies, you only need 2 to 3 sessions per week with enough intensity to be able to preserve as well as build lean muscle. Number two, we keep the volume low enough so that we don't overspike your cortisol and keep your hunger manageable, which is huge. Your ability to stay consistent with your nutrition, not overeat, it's going to be the driver of your fat loss program. That's the most important thing, is getting your weight to healthy body fat levels. Number three, it's short enough to fit even in your worst week, not just your best one. 45 minutes is more than reasonable to be able to do on a week-to-week basis, as opposed to 5. How much more consistent are you going to be when you make a rule and non-negotiable for yourself that I have to hit my 45-minute sessions a week versus I have to hit my 5 brutal 90-minute bro split sessions a week? So it just comes down to what's more realistic, especially when you factor in the context that we're busy. We got other priorities in our lives. That leads to number 4, is it is more sustainable. We want to build something that we can do on a repeat basis for life. This is not a season of fitness. This is not, hey, I want to get in shape for my wedding. No, this is, I want to live to be 100. I want to look like a movie star year round. I want to transform my identity and be able to be the best version of myself. If you look like garbage, you're overweight, you are leaving results on the table in terms of how much of an ROI it can bring you into your life. You have no idea. In my 30s, I cannot tell you how much of a difference it makes to be presentable, to be able to take my shirt off with confidence, to love looking myself in the mirror, to all the physical benefits that it comes from. I don't ever experience back pain. I have more energy than I do in my 20s. Sustainability is what's important without burning ourselves out, trying to peg ourselves into a hole that's not realistic. So it all comes down to our strategy, our tactics. And the bottom foundational is where you need to be focusing most of your time. Okay. And this is where we designed our program around compound lifts, because it targets the most amount of muscle. It makes the most out of every single minute that you have to be spending in the gym. Then we focus on recovery, making sure that our volume is set in such a way where it allows the maximum amount of recovery, not spike hunger levels. And the third thing is just consistency. Our goal is to make it practical so that you can be consistent with it. So it's not to overly push the boundaries of your willpower to a point where it's just not sustainable. Willpower, discipline, these are all foundational things that you need. If you can't hit 3 45-minute workouts in a week, then the issue is you. It's not the program. Okay. And you need to work on understanding how to make that more of a non-negotiable. And you can check out some of my mindset modules that I've made with that in that case. The second tier is progression. We do want to focus on progressive overload. We're doing progressive overload with things like increasing the weight, increasing the reps a little bit. The main thing is that we stay consistent with the program and we train with enough intensity, and eventually the progression will come. You don't need to over obsess about continuously trying to increase the weight. As long as you're training with enough intensity, you will be able to build muscle. Last but not least, and this is where a lot of guys end up focusing on too much, is accessories, things like, buying whey protein and creatine. They'll buy their outfits and all this like flashy stuff, as opposed to doing the foundational things that are required for you to actually succeed. So these accessories make minimal difference. We're going to sum it up very quickly here. It's 3 sessions, and each one is hyper intentional to be as efficient as possible and to maximize the ROI in terms of building the absolute best physique possible where you look like a movie star. It's going to sound so stupidly simple, but I want you to bear with me. Day 1 is upper body focus. 1 chest exercise, 1 shoulder exercise, 1 back exercise, and then 1 arm exercise, whether it's biceps or triceps. Each exercise has 3 sets with the warm-up. And these 3 days, you can schedule it the way you want and move things around based on your schedule. Now, the second day is going to be a lower body day. This is where we focus on the legs. That includes the quads, hamstrings, hips. Our legs is our largest muscle, and therefore will be our largest stimulus of producing testosterone, which is one of the main reasons why we need to hit the gym and not just be doing cardio. Then we add in a little bit of shoulders and arms to add in some extra stimulus on our shoulders, because shoulders is arguably the most aesthetic muscle that we can focus on. The legs, we only do once because legs can also cause a lot of fatigue and a lot of recovery demands. So our focus here is to be efficient and to create sustainability for you. The third one is basically a repeat of the first day, except now we choose a different variation of the chest workout, back workout, shoulders. If you did biceps on the first day, now you would do triceps on the last day. The mindset shift I want you to have, and this goes against the entire fitness industry logic, and you might be very confused where I'm going with this. A lot of guys have this mindset that they just need to add in more work or add in more volume, add in more sets. And this is the sort of scam that these bodybuilders or these influencers sell you when they don't understand the context of our lives and they don't understand the context of how our bodies actually work. 5-day bodybuilder splits is largely built under a chemically enhanced environment. They recover quicker. They're not in these additional stress environments. We're playing a different game than these guys. We need to be able to have different tactics. Number 2 is in Nexi, we don't prescribe ab training. Ab workouts doesn't actually reduce fat. It's no such thing as ab workouts that's going to reduce fat. A caloric deficit and patience is what's going to do it. Okay, you give it enough time, that's what's going to eventually show your ab, not training these abs. The reason why we remove them in the program is, again, we want to focus on efficiency. Adding ab workouts in addition to everything else is just going to cause more recovery demand. There's a trade-off, there's a give and take in everything. And so based off of the experience I've had over 10 years training clients, taking the ab training out and focusing more on the other compound lifts is what's most important at the end of the day during your cut phase. Once you get there, then at that point, you can start adding these things in. Third is we're not trying to chase the pump. Pumps feel productive, but they're ultimately just a sensation and it's not actually a stimulus. We need to focus again on efficiency, focusing in on what's actually giving you progress. Last but not least is we're not doing 2-hour sessions. Past 60 minutes, our cortisol levels starts to overtake our ability to grow anabolically. We want to keep our sessions efficient as possible to reduce the friction of how much time it takes out of your day. 3 sessions per week is all it takes. Keep it at 45 minutes per session. This keeps it within the cortisol friendly window. And 80% of your workouts are all coming from compound lifts. So this comes down to what's called the Pareto law of training, where we focus on the highest amount of muscle stimulus per lift as possible to make the most out of your ROI. And last but not least is 2.25 hours per week total. That's less than 1 episode of Netflix per day. If you can't do that, you have other issues and you need to check out my mindset protocol about being able to get yourself accountable so you can actually be able to do this. This is designed not only from a sustainability standpoint, but also designed to, again, protect your cortisols, protect your hormones throughout this whole process so that you can actually be successful. Now, I'm going to give you a real week of my business partner, Kevin, who used to be a client of mine. He started off at 200 pounds and he lost 40 pounds with his exact same protocol. Okay? And he's held this for 40 years. On Mondays, he does his upper body lifts for about 45 minutes. Nowadays, actually, sometimes he only does 30 minutes because he does supersets. And then he does his 10K steps. Tuesday, he rests and focuses on his steps. Wednesday, he does his lower body, does his steps. Thursday, steps again. Friday, upper body with his steps. Saturday, he does his walking as well. And then he usually includes some sort of like physical activity that's fun. And sometimes it could be like a run club or a paddle. You take his pick depending on what he does. And this goes into the whole area of doing 1 HIIT exercise per week to give you that extra stimulus of burning calories. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my cardio module for more information on that, on how we approach cardio. Sunday, last but not least, he finishes off with steps. It just comes down to 3 lifts, 0 hours of wasted time, hyper efficient so that it can fit into almost anyone's life. I did this exact same program and got to 8% body fat in 2022, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week sometimes, going to the office. When you make it a non-negotiable and you have a good plan, you are guaranteed to succeed. Finally, we take a step further because that's what we do. We look into all details at Nexi with our clients. If the protocol is still not producing results, then we look into the next layer, and that is what is going on in your body. What is going on in your hormone system? What is going on in your metabolism? This is a huge one that, if not 99% of coaches miss because they're either incapable of being able to do it or they just don't care. For me, I have a health science background in over 10 years, working in the health field for 10 plus years. And I've done the research, and not only from an academic standpoint, but also I've experienced it myself with my own body. The main things that we want to look at is how is your testosterone levels functioning as a whole? If your testosterone is suppressed in any way, then no amount of effort you're putting into the gym is going to give you a very good ROI back. We need to check and make sure your testosterone levels are optimal. The second thing is free T3, or we call it your metabolism. Your thyroid affects your metabolism. So if free T3 is affected in any way, if you are over aggressively dieting in any way, you've been starving yourself for too long, then it can create issues with your thyroid, and that will be your bottleneck. So we need to check those numbers to make sure that your body's functioning as best as we can. The details are in the data. You neglect the details, you're going to get a mediocre result. You look into the details and you are hyper specific, you're going to get hyper specific results. That's just how it works, guys. And this is the details that pretty much 99% of all coaches miss. Chronically high cortisol blunts the anabolic response to training. So we need to make sure that your cortisol levels are in check, your stress levels are in check, that you're not overtraining, you're not overstressed in any way. And if so, we need to build protocols so that you can be more resilient to stress, also to adopt your program so it revolves around your stress levels. So we have to be adaptable. Working with Nexi with our clients is we have a tight-knit athlete to coach feedback system so that once we understand that our client stress levels are changing, we can adopt the program. So this is something that you can start tonight, this week, this month. Is number one, cut the fat and bloat out of your program. Open your current existing training plan and delete all the nonsense. Go back to my previous slide and plug and play those things if you wanted to do it that way. And block 3 sessions on next week's calendar, 45 minutes each, and now make it a non-negotiable. Okay, you have to now execute this. You want to make a mental note in terms of your fatigue, hunger, and recovery levels the day after. We call it the athlete feedback system in Nexi. But if you're going to be managing yourself, you want to score that so you can stay in tune with how you're responding to this. Make sure you get your blood work so that you can confirm that your hormones are as optimal as it could be. You can check out my hormone protocol if you haven't already, or either alternatively, if you want some personalized guidance from me, you can book a free strategy call with me, and I'll be more than happy to go through exactly what's going on in your life. We'll do a full diagnosis, and then we'll create an actionable next step for you in terms of how that might look like. If you also want all your workouts plug and play for you, including your nutrition, we have a Nexi app that does all that for you. It's all done and plug and play, and you just got to follow those steps. We have a 7-day free trial. So if you're interested, check it out. It's going to be a game changer in terms of saving you time on writing it down yourself or downloading some generic app. It's hyper specific to the Nexi blueprint. And I'm going to end with this: goals plus systems equals results. Everybody wants to have a movie star physique, but the ones that actually end up accomplishing it are the ones with the right systems. That's the difference between that's what's going to get you results versus what's going to keep you banging your head on the wall and doing trial and error for years and years and years, telling yourself, one day I'm going to get into shape and I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. All right. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I'll see you on the next one.